To explain the scope of the problem. Danny?
Well, Mary Allison Scott, here is a harsh reality. The total amount of unidentified remains in this country has reached 40,000. The National Institute of Justice famously calls this the nation's silent mass disaster. And there are real consequences to leaving people unidentified. In some cases, homicides could go unsolved. For any family, no matter the circumstances, the emotional toll when someone goes missing can just be unbearable. These families are caught in an unimaginable position, hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst.
We're going to begin to pray. He have children, Lord. He have grandchildren, oh Lord. Lord, he have sisters and brothers and loved ones, oh Lord, that love him all over this city, oh Lord.
1 year ago, last October, a tight-knit family from the east side of Buffalo began a frantic search. Timothy Borden had disappeared at the age of 51.
I just want to see my brother back.
I feel helpless, but I'm not hopeless.
I miss my dad.
Police found his wallet and jacket near the Buffalo River. They searched the water but found nothing. 1 year later, this October, Timothy Borden's family came back to the river. His sister finds herself caught in limbo.
I buried a mother and I have buried a father. And I think this is the worst that I have ever had to endure in my life.
It's rare for an adult to go missing for a long period of time.
Buffalo Police Lieutenant David Mann is in charge of the unit that investigates missing persons. Most of his cases involve runaway children, and most of them are eventually resolved. By the end of 2014, for example, law enforcement across western New York's 8 counties reported a total of 392 active missing persons cases. In Erie County, about 60% of the active cases at the end of the year involved children. A long-term adult case like Timothy Borden is different.
Obviously, these cases stick with detectives, and they're always looking for another avenue to investigate.
But without a resolution, Timothy Borden's family has taken on its own role in the investigation. They have resorted to an unfortunate option.
It's time for peace now.
The family has contacted local agencies to see if Borden's DNA matches with any unidentified human remains. So far, there's been no match.
You don't want to be happy, you don't want to be sad, but you don't even know how to feel at that point.
To help families like Timothy Borden's, the federal government set up a new system about a decade ago. It's called the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, also known as NamUs, and it's the very first government database that's totally accessible to the public. It attempts to match missing persons reports with the thousands of unidentified remains that turn up every year.
They call it the nation's silent mass disaster.
Dr. Jennifer Prutzman Pfeiffer is a forensic anthropologist who often consults on unidentified cases. In 2012, the New York State Police asked for her help in identifying remains found in Orleans County 30 years ago. She immediately uploaded the cold case file to NamUs. Months later,
I received a call out of the blue from a woman in Virginia who thought that this unidentified woman entered into NamUs might be her half-sister.
The Orleans County District Attorney ordered the body to be dug up from a cemetery in Albion. DNA samples from the remains then went to the lab.
And when the result came back, it wasn't this woman's sister, but it was somebody's daughter.
In a twist, the DNA matched another woman from Florida, Sherry Lynn Ball, who went missing in 1983 after telling her parents she was going to New York to start a modeling career. A tip from NamUs also helped solve a cold case near Rochester this January. Tammy Jo Alexander was identified after going missing in 1979.
Even our side, even the forensic side of things, the law enforcement really need to get on board with this because it helps. It does work.
Law enforcement, medical examiners, and even families can all make submissions to the NamUs database, and several local agencies told me they're absolutely on board with using that database to try to help solve cases. Just 2 months ago here at LaSalle Park, there was a case just like this where there were unidentified remains that washed up from the shore. But it's not a requirement for agencies to put these cases into the database. The Buffalo Police Department's dive team was on the scene that day when the remains washed up. Borden's family is now waiting on the results of a DNA test from those remains.
You're waiting, and you know, you don't build your hopes up that it's him, but if it is, you can be okay.
This is a real-life example of a case where missing persons cases or unidentified remains could go into the NamUs database for the public to search. But since it's not required, Buffalo police haven't yet entered Borden's case, though they have actively used NamUs in the past. On the other side, the case at LaSalle Park will never go into the NamUs database because the Erie County Medical Examiner's Office doesn't use NamUs anymore. Instead, it chooses to identify any new unidentified remains without its help. A spokesperson for the medical examiner provided a statement saying, "We barely see one of these cases per year. We no longer maintain a profile on NamUs because it generated a lot of fruitless work for an overworked staff." This is important because say these remains at LaSalle Park don't belong to Borden, but instead someone else's family member from out of state.
Nobody would necessarily know that they were a match before this system. The families would have no way to have this accessible nationwide or to anybody, really.
The heartbreak of a family when someone goes missing who's a member of your family is terrible.
New York Senator Chuck Schumer is the sponsor of a bill in Congress that would strengthen NamUs by funding it better, combining it with information from the FBI's database, and offering grants to help agencies enter cases into the system faster. The bill has failed several times since 2009.
What is the status now?
Well, the status is it's in committee. I'm a co-sponsor of it. Look, we have many adults who go missing. There are so many different lists that it's very hard to find someone. If there were one comprehensive list for the whole country, it would be much, much better.
In Western New York, only 46 missing persons cases and 35 unidentified remains cases have been entered into the NamUs system. About a quarter of these cases in Western New York date back before 1990.
31 years later, all my aunt and uncle want is peace.
In 1985, a 21-year-old woman named Leisha Riley disappeared from West Seneca. Her first cousin, Tom McDonnell, was 16 when it happened. This is an example of a case where police suspected foul play, but couldn't move forward because they never recovered a body. Her case was added to NamUs in 2009.
The fact remains still, no body, no crime.
In the case of Timothy Borden, Buffalo police say they've never lost sight of it.
We don't know the resolution of that case yet, but it's still definitely an active case.
Borden's sister says she's still waiting for the DNA test to come back on the remains washed up at LaSalle Park. But she too believes in that small percentage, that her family's nightmare will end not with a body, but with a reunion.
I do believe when prayers go up, blessings come down.
I still sit there today waiting for him to walk down that street, and that's the hardest part for me, and I just miss them being around on a constant basis, and there's no words to describe how I could even tell you. Like I said, I get up in the middle of the night and I sit in that window and I just wait.
Timothy Borden's sister says she's even been in touch with agencies from other states to help identify her brother. Now, while Senator Schumer's legislation to strengthen that NamUs database is in the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, the House version of the bill is also in committee. A Democrat is the sponsor of the Senate bill, and a Republican is a sponsor of the House bill. Danny Spiewak, Channel 2 News.
Very interesting. Thank you, Danny. You can't help but feel for families like the Bordens, and they are hoping for the best. But still, if there was just one database, what a difference that would make. And really, I think for most people, not knowing can be endless torture.